Hello my friends, hello again and welcome back to Pensando Inglés. Today I'm going to speak in intermediate English about how I felt with my Spanish in Colombia, okay? Now I started learning Spanish about 4 years ago. You know, I feel comfortable when I speak with my wife. I can watch things on Netflix, listen to things, read. I feel good. But I still wondered, how will I do in a Spanish-speaking country, okay? It's like, yeah, you train to fight and stuff, but you never know how you're gonna do until it's the day of the fight, right? So I've been practicing for a long time, but I hadn't been to a Spanish-speaking country yet. And you know, we were gonna be at different cities, and I was gonna be meeting a lot of people, and I just wasn't sure. Would I be able to understand everybody? Or would I have some trouble? Would I have to ask my wife to translate for me? How is it gonna go? So that's what we're gonna talk about today. All right. Now, first of all, I'm happy, okay? I'm happy with how it went. I didn't have any real problems, okay? I was able to buy things. I was able to order at restaurants. I was able to understand almost everybody, okay? However, there were a couple of issues. And it wasn't an issue, it was just a couple of difficulties, a couple of things that I had to get used to, okay? One thing is that some of the family members of my wife that I was meeting, for one, they're older. For two, they're from the country, el campo, okay? They're from fincas, all right, from farms. So, what does that mean? That means that they use a completely different vocabulary than the young people that I've met and spoke with and people from big cities, okay? So, I was able to talk with them and have good conversations and everything, but very often they would use a word that in my 4 years of learning Spanish, I have never heard, okay? For example, I've been having some back issues. My wife's mother asked me, ¿Cómo está tu columno? And maybe you guys are thinking, oh, that's a super common word, but I hadn't heard that one, okay? So I was like, ¿mi qué? And her sister was like, your back, tu espalda. Oh, okay, no he escuchado eso. So little things like that, guys. I could have the conversations, but there'd be little words that I couldn't understand. And there was one person on the whole trip who, at first, I could not understand almost anything, okay? It was like he was speaking Italian or, you know, it was like, it sounded like Spanish, but my brain was not understanding what he was saying. So it was like listening to somebody speak Catalan or something, okay? It sounds like Spanish, but they're using words that you don't understand, and for some reason it's just not clicking, okay? And that is my wife's uncle. And it turns out that he is the sweetest, kindest guy in Colombia, maybe. And it took me a while to get used to how he talks, okay? So the first time I met him, he's talking to me and I'm like, okay, I was making the face that a lot of Mexicans make here in the United States. Mexicans that don't speak English. When you talk to them, they're like, now I know how that feels. That's like a meme, guys. That a Mexican who doesn't understand you here, when you talk to them, they smile real big and shake their head. That was your amigo in Colombia when I was talking to my wife's uncle. But anyway, we hung out with him the first night, and I couldn't hardly understand what he was saying. And then another day, he drove us around for several hours. We got lunch with him, spent a lot more time with him. And after a little while, I started picking up the things he was saying, and by the end, I was able to have a nice conversation with him. But like I said, it's the age thing and where they're from, okay? It's like, here, if you speak to somebody from the south that lives in the mountains, you would not have a clue what they're saying. They have a different accent. They have a different rhythm to the way they talk. They use completely different words. They use very old words, okay? And you'd be like, what is this guy saying? But I'm very happy I was able to understand him towards the end, because it was a pleasure to meet somebody so nice. My wife's parents, I was able to have conversations with them, but like I said, they used some words. My wife's dad asked me if I wanted to get a beer with him, but he used a word that I had never heard. I can't remember what it was, so guys, my Colombians, tell me in the comments, what is a word for beer, cerveza, that you guys use? I've heard other words for cerveza, chela, una fría. What else? What's another word for a beer that Colombians use? Tell me, because I forget. But he asked me, hey, do you want to come get this with me? Let's go find a place where we could get a blank. And I was like, perdón, ¿qué? And he said, blah, 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 una cerveza. And I was like, oh, okay. But I had no idea what he was trying to tell me. So guys, with my wife's brother and sister and all the young people, perfectly fine. But something that I learned when I went to Colombia is that older people speak a lot differently. And when we went to El Eje Cafetero, our taxi driver, he spoke como paisa, and he was older. So he was a very cool guy though. He was trying to talk to me a lot, and I understood like 80% of what he was saying. Okay, I was missing a couple things, but we were able to have a conversation. But that's just one thing I learned, that the older people talk a lot different. And I guess it's the same here, because I know sometimes my mom is saying things to my wife, and my wife is looking at me like, what does that mean? I have to explain it to her, because the older people do not use the same vocabulary that people my age use, and people my age do not use the same vocabulary as the young people my son's age use, okay? So you gotta kind of get used to it. But I'm happy that I learned that, because now when we go back, I'm more prepared. But overall, I'm very happy with how it went, how I feel about my Spanish. I was able to connect and have awesome conversations with people. I met my wife's friends, and it was just like going out. We went to a dinner with one of her friends, and we went to a mall and got a drink with another one of her friends. And both times we were able to speak just like we were out with some friends in English. It was the conversation was flowing. It was great. Had a wonderful time. And the real test was when my wife stayed a little bit longer. My son and I went back 2 weeks earlier. So we went to the airport in Armenia, from Armenia to Panama. So, I didn't have my wife. Usually my wife is talking a lot with them, because, they look at her and start speaking to her, because obviously they don't even know that I speak Spanish. But when it was just me, I was talking with everybody, and they were all very happy that I spoke Spanish. So when me and my son came out, they would try and speak English. They'd be like, you speak Spanish? I'm like, sí, señor. And they're like, oh, very happy. And that was really cool. I liked being able to go to the airport, talk with everybody. I really like buying things there, guys. It was super cool for me just to go into a shop and, get a coffee or get a little bit of food or whatever it was. That was one of my favorite things, to go and buy something, even if it's something small, because it's a cool little interaction, and it made me just feel like I was living the life there. And it was really interesting for me to learn about the money as well, because obviously I had no idea what 1,000 pesos was or 100,000 pesos was. So I was letting my wife pay for stuff for a while until I could understand what's going on, because I didn't want somebody to try and rip me off, engañarme, like I thought that old man was doing when he told me it was 500 pesos to use the bathroom. I thought he was trying to rip me off. So I was letting her handle the money, but once I started to understand, okay, this usually costs around, 10,000 pesos, then I know, okay? Or a really good meal might cost this many. As soon as I started to understand, I really enjoyed paying, and it was cool to start to understand how the money works there. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed interacting with people, and I had a wonderful time, guys. But I just wanted to tell you guys how I felt using my Spanish that I've worked for so long on, and it showed me that my Spanish is good enough to travel. You know, even if I was by myself, I would have been fine. But it also showed me that I need, or you know, I don't want to say I need to improve, because I could go the rest of my life just like this, but it showed me that there's still a lot to learn, okay? Because if I went to my father-in-law, mi suegro, if I went to his finca, they would probably be saying tons of things that I wouldn't understand. It's the vocabulary of the finca, you know? So it showed me that there's still a lot to learn, and my Spanish journey is not over. It's only just beginning. I've only been to one Spanish-speaking country, and Puerto Rico, which doesn't really count because it's part of this country. And I want to experience more now. But it opened my eyes up. It showed me that there's a whole lot more adventures for me to have, a whole lot more to learn in this language. And I'm excited to do it. So we'll see what the next year brings and where this adventure takes me. Thank you guys, as always. Muchísimas gracias por ver y nos vemos pronto.